relation tales. Leah gazed at the sprawling city skyline from the balcony of her penthouse suite. The warm breeze teased her blonde curls, but her mind was miles away. The city lights glittered beneath her, the luxury she always dreamed of, a life of ease, wealth, and beauty. This was what she'd wanted for so long, what she'd fought for. And yet, a deep, gnawing emptiness gripped her heart. It had been 2 years since she married Daniel. On paper, their life seemed perfect. Extravagant vacations, a mansion with a view, and the admiration of everyone who saw them together. But behind closed doors, the cracks were undeniable. Leah had married Daniel not for love, but for security. At 26, she was no longer the naive girl who believed in love stories and fairy tales. Her modeling career had exposed her to the glittering world of wealth and status, and she had tasted just enough to realize she wanted it all. Daniel, with his businesses and influence, had been her golden ticket. He had approached her shyly at a cafe one day, and though his appearance didn't catch her eye, the keys to a luxury car he casually tossed on the table certainly did. Leah smiled at the memory, a bitter smile. She had hardly given him a glance until she saw the brand, Porsche. That was when she knew Daniel was different from the others who had tried to woo her with empty promises. He had real power, real money, and that was exactly what she wanted. She turned away from the view and walked back into the lavish living room where Daniel was lounging on the couch, watching a late-night business program. His thinning hair barely clung to his scalp, and the deep lines on his face were etched with years of stress. He glanced up at her, a small, tired smile crossing his lips. "You coming to bed, Leah?" he asked, his voice calm and unassuming. Daniel had never been one to raise his voice or demand much from her. "In a bit," she replied, her tone colder than she intended. "I just want to enjoy the night for a while longer." Daniel didn't push. He rarely did. That was another reason Leah had found it so easy to marry him. Daniel gave her space, allowed her the freedom she craved. But that freedom had become a double-edged sword. She watched him get up and shuffle off toward their bedroom. Her stomach twisted with guilt for a moment. He didn't deserve her coldness. Daniel had been nothing but kind to her. He had given her the world, the life she had always wanted. But he lacked the one thing Leah realized she could no longer live without: passion. The following morning, Leah woke up to the sound of Daniel typing furiously on his laptop. His work was his life. He had several successful businesses, all of which demanded his constant attention. Even when they traveled for vacations, his phone was never far from his hand. Leah had grown accustomed to it, though it often annoyed her. Their conversations had become few and far between, their intimacy reduced to brief, obligatory moments that left her feeling empty. As she slid out of bed and padded across the marble floor to the bathroom, Leah caught a glimpse of herself in the mirror. She still had the look that had made her a sought-after model. Her figure was flawless, her skin smooth and glowing. But there was something missing in her eyes. A spark she hadn't noticed was gone until recently. She had everything, but why did it feel like nothing? By the time she made it to the kitchen, Daniel had already left for the office, as he always did. Leah sat at the dining table, sipping her morning coffee in silence. She checked her phone. A notification popped up from one of her friends. Lunch plans. That was her life now. Restaurants, spas, and endless gossip sessions with her girlfriends. It wasn't that Leah didn't enjoy these things. She did. But after a while, the excitement wore off. The rich conversation grew dull, the expensive meals tasted the same, and the spa treatments became routine. What Leah truly longed for was something she hadn't felt in a long time: desire. It was on this particular day that she decided to meet her friends for lunch at a high-end restaurant in the heart of the city. Leah dressed impeccably, as she always did, slipping on a designer dress that hugged her curves in all the right places. Her beauty was her weapon, one that she wielded skillfully. She'd gotten used to the stares she received, the admiring glances from men, and the envious ones from women. It was power, the kind she had always wanted. The restaurant was buzzing with chatter, the clinking of glasses, and the soft murmur of classical music playing in the background. Leah's friends, Sabrina and Melissa, were already seated at a table near the window, sipping mimosas. "Leah, darling," Sabrina waved her over, her bright red nails gleaming in the sunlight. "You look amazing, as usual." Leah smiled as she sat down, her eyes scanning the room briefly before settling on her friends. They dove into their usual conversation, Sabrina complaining about her husband's latest business trip and Melissa gushing about her latest luxury purchase. Leah nodded along, laughing at the right moments, but her mind was elsewhere. The conversation felt like white noise, a constant hum of vanity that held no real meaning. It was then that Leah noticed him. Across the room, seated at the bar, was a man who seemed out of place amidst the wealth and pretense of the restaurant. He wasn't wearing a tailored suit or a flashy watch like most of the men who frequented the place. Instead, he wore a simple button-down shirt that clung to his muscular frame. His hair was tousled in a way that looked effortlessly stylish, and his eyes, piercing blue, were scanning the room, just as Leah's had done moments before. He caught her gaze. For a moment, the world seemed to stop. Leah's breath hitched slightly, and a thrill shot through her veins. She hadn't felt that in years. "Earth to Leah." Melissa's voice jolted her back to reality. "You okay? You look like you've seen a ghost." Leah blinked, shaking her head slightly. "I'm fine," she said, but her mind was already racing. Who was he? Why had he captivated her so instantly? And why couldn't she stop staring? The rest of lunch passed in a blur. Leah barely listened to her friends as her thoughts kept drifting back to the stranger at the bar. She noticed when he stood up to leave, her eyes following him as he walked out the door, his confident stride making her pulse quicken. She thought that would be the last she'd see of him, but fate had other plans. The next week, Leah found herself at the same restaurant, this time alone. Her friends were busy, but Leah needed an excuse to escape the confines of her lonely home. She didn't expect to see him again, but as she entered the restaurant, there he was, Julian. Leah felt a strange pull toward him. It was like her body was moving on autopilot as she walked toward the bar where he sat. His head turned as she approached, a small smile playing on his lips. "Back again?" he asked, his voice deep and smooth, like velvet. Leah smiled coyly. "Seems like we have the same taste in restaurants." Julian chuckled, motioning to the seat next to him. "Care to join me?" Without hesitation, Leah sat down. The air between them was electric, charged with an undeniable chemistry. They talked for hours, their conversation flowing effortlessly. Julian was funny, charming, and everything Daniel wasn't. He made her laugh, made her feel alive in a way she hadn't felt in years. By the time they left the restaurant, Leah's heart was racing, and she had already slipped her wedding ring into her purse. The sun dipped below the horizon, casting a warm, golden hue over the city. Leah felt invigorated as she walked down the street, her mind racing with thoughts of Julian. It had been a week since they first met, and the chemistry between them was undeniable. They had started texting each other, and Julian was a refreshing change from Daniel. Every time her phone buzzed with a message from him, her heart fluttered with excitement. They exchanged playful banter, flirted over late-night texts, and shared snippets of their lives. Julian was everything she had been craving: fun, carefree, and attentive. He made her feel seen and desired. As she lay in bed that night, her thoughts drifted to Daniel. He was a good man, but Leah found herself resenting him more with each passing day. She could picture him in their home, immersed in work, his laptop glowing in the dark while she lay next to him, feeling utterly alone. Did he even notice her absence? Leah closed her eyes, allowing herself to dream of a life with Julian. They could travel together, explore new places, and indulge in the passion that she felt was lacking with Daniel. The thought thrilled her. The next day, Leah met Julian for lunch again, this time at a trendy cafe in the downtown district. As she walked in, she saw him already seated, his blue eyes lighting up as he spotted her. "Hey there, beautiful," he said, a grin spreading across his face. "You look amazing." "Thanks. You're not too bad yourself," she replied, feeling a rush of warmth wash over her. As they settled into their seats, Leah felt a sense of freedom she hadn't experienced in years. They laughed over their meals, shared stories, and discovered mutual interests. Julian was passionate about fitness and outdoor adventures, while Leah shared tales from her modeling days. The connection between them deepened, and Leah found herself hanging onto his every word. "Have you ever tried rock climbing?" Julian asked, leaning forward with excitement. "I know a great place just outside the city. We should go sometime." "Rock climbing?" Leah laughed, surprised at the suggestion. "I don't know. I'm not exactly the adventurous type. Trust me, it'll be fun. I'll show you the ropes," Julian said with a wink. Leah felt a flutter in her stomach. The thought of being adventurous, of stepping outside her comfort zone, excited her. They made plans for that weekend, and as Leah left the cafe, she couldn't stop smiling. This was the thrill she had been missing. The weekend arrived quickly, and Leah found herself standing at the base of a rocky cliff, her heart racing with a mix of excitement and nerves. Julian was beside her, demonstrating how to wear the climbing harness. He exuded confidence, and it made her feel safe. "Just remember to trust the gear and your partner," Julian said, fastening her harness snugly. His hands brushed against her waist, sending a shiver down her spine. She looked into his eyes, finding a depth of warmth and reassurance that made her feel alive. As they climbed, Leah felt her anxiety fade away. Julian's encouragement and infectious enthusiasm helped her push past her limits. She laughed and squealed as she reached higher, her body working in unison with the rock face. "See? You're a natural," Julian cheered as they reached a ledge. The view was breathtaking, the sprawling landscape a mix of greens and blues. Leah felt a rush of pride and accomplishment, and as she turned to Julian, she saw him looking at her with admiration. In that moment, everything else, the life she had built with Daniel, the lies she was living, faded away. All that mattered was this feeling of freedom, of being completely present. "Thank you for this," Leah said breathlessly, her heart pounding from both the climb and the connection growing between them. "I've never done anything like this before." Julian stepped closer, his eyes intense. "I'm glad I could show you something new. You deserve to feel this way more often." The air crackled with tension as they stood there, and Leah's pulse quickened. The moment hung between them, electric and charged with possibility. Then, without thinking, she leaned in and kissed him. It was soft at first, a gentle brush of lips, but it quickly ignited into something deeper, filled with all the passion and longing she had been missing. As they pulled away, Leah's heart raced with exhilaration and fear. She had crossed a line, one that would make it even harder to return to her life with Daniel. But at that moment, she didn't care. This was what she wanted. The following weeks blurred into a whirlwind of stolen moments and secret rendezvous. Leah and Julian met often, each encounter igniting a fire within her that had long been extinguished. They explored the city together, shared their dreams and fears, and lost themselves in each other's embrace. But with every secret rendezvous came the weight of guilt. Leah was living a double life, and every time she returned home to Daniel, the facade grew more challenging to maintain. She began to feel the strain of her deception. Her smiles felt forced, and her laughter hollow. Daniel noticed. "You seem distant lately," he remarked one evening as they shared a quiet dinner. "Is everything okay?" Leah's heart raced. What if he knew? "I'm just tired, that's all," she lied, forcing a smile. "It's been a long week." Daniel nodded, but his eyes held a flicker of concern. Leah felt a pang of guilt wash over her. He was a good man who deserved honesty, but the thought of revealing her affair was unthinkable. As the weeks turned into months, Leah found herself caught in a web of lies. Julian's persistent charm and excitement pulled her deeper into the affair, while Daniel's unwavering loyalty kept her tethered to a life she no longer wanted. One evening, Leah sat alone in the living room, her phone buzzing incessantly with messages from Julian. She had spent the entire day avoiding his calls, unsure of how to face him after their last rendezvous. Could this really be happening? Her phone rang again, and against her better judgment, she answered. "Leah, where have you been?" Julian's voice was a mix of frustration and concern. "I thought we had plans tonight." "I know, I'm sorry. Something came up," she lied, her heart pounding. "Can we reschedule?" "Leah, you can't keep doing this," Julian said, his tone turning serious. I care about you. I want to be with you. But this hiding is tearing me apart. Leah felt a rush of panic. She had never intended for things to get this complicated. I need time to figure things out, Julian, she replied, her voice trembling. I can't just leave Daniel. Why not? He pressed. You're unhappy. You deserve to be with someone who makes you feel alive. But what about him? Leah whispered, feeling the weight of her choices pressing down on her. He's a good man. I can't just hurt him like that. By staying with him, you're hurting yourself and me, Julian said, his voice softer now. You need to choose what you really want. The conversation ended with Leah feeling more lost than ever. She had to make a decision, but the fear of losing everything she had built, even if it was built on lies, paralyzed her. The weeks dragged on, each passing day blurring into the next as Leah continued her double life. Her once vibrant spirit dimmed as the guilt festered within her. Daniel was oblivious to her turmoil, but he couldn't ignore the change in her demeanor. Their conversations grew shorter, and the warmth that once filled their home was replaced by an uncomfortable silence. One evening, Leah came home after a particularly intense day with Julian, her heart racing as she walked through the door. Daniel was already home, seated at the kitchen table, papers strewn across it. Hey, how was your day? He asked, looking up with a hopeful smile. Busy, you know, Leah replied, forcing a smile as she dropped her bag on the floor. She avoided his gaze, knowing that if she looked into his eyes, the guilt would consume her. Do you want to talk about it? Daniel asked gently. You seem off lately. I'm fine, really, Leah insisted, pouring herself a glass of wine. She needed the alcohol to numb the anxiety bubbling beneath the surface. Are you sure? Because I feel like you're hiding something from me, he said, his voice laced with concern. Leah felt her heart race. Was he suspecting? I promise. I'm just tired. I've been working a lot, she replied, her tone sharp. Daniel frowned, but nodded slowly, retreating into silence. Leah felt a pang of guilt twist in her stomach. The man she had married was genuine, caring, and devoted. How could she betray him so easily? A few days later, Leah met Julian for dinner at a cozy Italian restaurant. As they settled into their booth, she felt a mix of excitement and dread. They were deep in conversation when Julian leaned across the table, his expression serious. Leah, we need to talk, he said, his voice low. Her stomach dropped. What's wrong? I can't keep doing this. I care about you too much to be just a secret, he admitted, his eyes searching hers for understanding. I want more. Can't you see that? Leah's heart raced. I know, but it's complicated. Daniel is a good man, but you're not happy with him. You're just living in a gilded cage, Julian interrupted, frustration creeping into his tone. You deserve to be free, Leah. You need to decide what you really want. Leah felt tears prick at her eyes. She didn't want to hurt Julian, but she also couldn't bear the thought of shattering Daniel's world. I need more time, she whispered, her voice trembling. Time is something we don't have, Julian replied, his voice softening. You have to make a choice? As Leah drove home that night, her thoughts spiraled. She felt suffocated by the weight of her choices, the impending doom of a decision she didn't know how to make. The next few days passed in a blur of anxiety and tension. Leah's interactions with Daniel grew more strained. Their conversations reduced to mundane exchanges. He noticed her emotional distance, and the concern in his eyes began to turn to worry. One evening, Daniel returned home earlier than usual. Leah had just finished a long day at a modeling shoot, and her heart raced at the thought of facing him. Leah, can we talk? He asked, his voice firm yet gentle. Of course, she replied, her stomach tightening. I feel like something is off between us, Daniel said, his eyes searching hers. You've been distant lately, and I can't shake the feeling that you're hiding something. Leah opened her mouth to protest, but no words came out. Her heart hammered in her chest as she looked into his eyes, searching for a way to ease his concerns without revealing the truth. Daniel, just tell me the truth, he interrupted, his voice low and steady. Are you unhappy? Is there someone else? The words hung in the air, heavy with accusation. Leah felt her throat tighten. No, of course not. I'm just stressed, she said, forcing a smile. Daniel sighed, rubbing the back of his neck. I just want you to be happy, Leah. If there's something you need to tell me, please do. I love you, and I want to help you. Leah's heart broke at his words, the sincerity in his voice tearing at her guilt. She wanted to be honest, to confess everything, but fear held her back. I love you too, she finally said, her voice trembling. I'm just going through a rough patch. Daniel nodded, his concern lingering. Just remember, I'm here for you. As he stepped away to grab a drink from the kitchen, Leah felt tears prick her eyes. The weight of her lies was becoming unbearable. But deep down, she also felt a thrill of excitement for what she had with Julian, and the pull was becoming harder to resist. Days turned into weeks, and Leah continued to oscillate between her life with Daniel and her clandestine affair with Julian. The thrill of sneaking around invigorated her, but with each encounter, the weight of her deception became heavier. Then one fateful night, Leah and Julian were at a hotel, tucked away from the prying eyes of the world. They lay entwined in bed, the air thick with passion. But as Julian caressed her arm, a sudden wave of guilt washed over Leah. "Julian, what are we doing?" she whispered, her voice barely above a murmur. "This isn't right." "Why not?" "We're two consenting adults," Julian replied, his breath warm against her skin. "We deserve this, Leah. You deserve to feel wanted and loved." "But I'm married," she protested weakly, even as her body craved his touch. Julian pulled back slightly, his expression shifting from desire to concern. "Leah, you can't keep living this way. You need to make a choice, me or him." Leah's heart raced. The ultimatum hung in the air like a dark cloud, suffocating her. She knew he was right, but the thought of leaving Daniel terrified her. She had built a life with him, a life filled with comfort and stability. "Just give me some time," she pleaded, feeling tears well up in her eyes. "I need to figure this out." "Time is something we don't have," Julian said, his voice softening. "I care about you too much to let you continue living a lie." As Julian drifted off to sleep, Leah lay awake, her mind racing. She was torn between two worlds, one filled with the thrill of passion and excitement, and the other offering security and familiarity. But as the hours passed, she knew she couldn't continue living this way. The next day, Leah woke up with a newfound resolve. She had to make a decision, and it couldn't wait any longer. That afternoon, she sat in a coffee shop, staring at her phone, contemplating whether to call Daniel. Taking a deep breath, she dialed his number, her heart pounding as she waited for him to answer. "Hey, Leah." Daniel's voice came through, warm and welcoming. "Hi, Daniel," she said, her voice shaky. "Can we talk?" "Of course. Is everything okay?" Leah swallowed hard, her throat tightening. "Can we meet at the park? I think we need to have a serious conversation." "Sure. I'll be there in 20, he replied, and she could hear the concern in his voice. Leah arrived at the park, pacing back and forth as she waited for Daniel. She felt a storm of emotions churning inside her. Fear, guilt, and an odd sense of liberation. When Daniel arrived, he looked worried, his brow furrowed as he approached her. "Leah, what's going on?" he asked, concern etched on his face. "Let's sit down," she said, gesturing to a nearby bench. Once they were seated, Leah took a deep breath, her heart pounding in her chest. "Daniel, I need to be honest with you," she began, her voice trembling. "There's something I've been hiding from you." Daniel's eyes widened, his expression shifting from concern to confusion. "What do you mean?" "I've been unfaithful," she confessed, tears streaming down her cheeks. "I've been seeing someone else." Silence engulfed them as Daniel processed her words. The pain in his eyes was palpable, and Leah felt her heart shatter at the sight. "Who?" he asked, his voice barely above a whisper. "Julian," Leah admitted, feeling the weight of the truth lift from her shoulders. Daniel's expression changed from shock to anger, his hands clenching into fists. "How could you do this to me, Leah?" he asked, his voice strained. "I trusted you. I know, and I'm so sorry." Leah sobbed, her heart aching. "I didn't want to hurt you, but I felt trapped, and I was seeking something I thought I was missing. I was selfish." "Selfish?" Daniel echoed, his voice rising. You destroyed everything we built together. You made a choice to betray me. I know. I made a mistake, she cried, feeling the weight of her actions crashing down around her. Daniel shook his head, his expression shifting from anger to sorrow. I can't believe this, he said, tears brimming in his eyes. I thought we had something real. I thought you loved me. Leah felt her heart break all over again. I do love you, Daniel. But I also love Julian. I've been living a lie, and I can't keep pretending. Daniel's shoulders slumped, and he looked away, tears spilling down his cheeks. I can't do this, he said quietly. I need time. As he walked away, Leah felt the weight of her choices crashing down on her. She had finally revealed the truth. But at what cost? She was losing the one person who had truly cared for her. In the days that followed, Leah felt lost and adrift. Daniel moved out, leaving their home empty and silent. The luxurious life she had built with him crumbled around her, leaving her to face the harsh reality of her decisions. Julian was supportive, but the excitement of their affair quickly faded as Leah realized the gravity of her actions. She had left Daniel for Julian, but the aftermath of her betrayal weighed heavily on her heart. Are you okay? Julian asked one night as they sat on the couch, the glow of the television illuminating their faces. I don't know, Leah admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. I thought leaving Daniel would make me happy, but it feels like I've lost everything. You still have me, Julian said, his voice soft and reassuring. But at what cost? Leah cried, tears streaming down her cheeks. I hurt someone who cared for me, and now I'm just a shell of who I used to be. Julian reached for her hand, squeezing it gently. We'll figure this out together. You just need time to heal. But as the days turned into weeks, Leah's world felt increasingly dark. She struggled to find her footing in her new life, and the weight of her guilt was suffocating. Meanwhile, Daniel began to piece his life back together. The pain of Leah's betrayal cut deep, but he was determined to move forward. He leaned on friends and family for support, seeking solace in their love and understanding. One night, while out with friends, Daniel met Sarah, a vibrant and passionate woman who worked in marketing. They clicked instantly, and Daniel found himself laughing and enjoying life again for the first time since the breakup. Sarah was everything Leah wasn't: spontaneous, adventurous, and unafraid to share her emotions. Their chemistry was undeniable, and Daniel felt a spark that he hadn't experienced in years. Let's go rock climbing this weekend, Sarah suggested one evening, her eyes sparkling with excitement. Daniel chuckled, surprised at the familiarity of her suggestion. Sure, why not? As they climbed together, Daniel felt a sense of liberation he hadn't thought possible. He had let go of the past, and with Sarah by his side, he began to embrace the future. As weeks passed, Leah found herself consumed by the guilt of her choices. She missed Daniel, his kindness, his support, and the life they had built together. One night, while lying in bed next to Julian, she realized that the thrill of their affair had faded into a haunting reminder of what she had lost. Are you okay? Julian asked, sensing her turmoil. I don't know, Leah admitted, her voice trembling. I thought I could just move on, but I feel so empty. Maybe you need to talk to him, Julian suggested, his expression serious. You need closure. Leah shook her head. I can't face him again. I hurt him too much. But deep down, she knew she had to confront the past to truly move forward. With a heavy heart, she decided to reach out to Daniel one last time. Leah texted Daniel, asking to meet at the park where they had last spoken. Her heart raced as she waited for him, anxiety gnawing at her. When he finally arrived, he looked different, stronger, more determined, but still carrying the weight of their shared history. Leah, he said, his voice flat, devoid of the warmth it once held. Daniel, thank you for meeting me, she said, her voice shaky. What do you want? He asked, his expression unreadable. I just wanted to say I'm sorry, Leah said, tears filling her eyes. I never meant to hurt you. I was lost and made terrible choices. Daniel remained silent, his eyes scanning her face as if searching for the truth. You hurt me deeply, Leah. I trusted you with everything. I know, Leah whispered, feeling the weight of his words. I destroyed what we had. but I want you to know that I loved you. I still do, in a way. I just got caught up in something I didn't know how to handle." Daniel looked away, taking a deep breath. "You broke my heart, Leah. I've been trying to move on, but the memories are still fresh." "I understand," Leah replied, her voice breaking. "But I want you to be happy. You deserve that. I just hope you can find it, even if it's not with me." Daniel studied her for a long moment before speaking again. "I'm trying to move forward. I've met someone new." The word struck Leah like a physical blow. "Someone new," she echoed, her heart sinking. "Her name is Sarah," he said, his tone steady. "She makes me happy." Leah felt tears spill down her cheeks. "I'm glad for you, Daniel. You deserve someone who loves you fully." He nodded, his expression softening slightly. "I hope you find happiness too, Leah. But I think it's time for both of us to let go of the past." As they parted ways, Leah felt an overwhelming sense of loss. She had wanted closure, but it hurt more than she had anticipated. In the following weeks, Leah tried to rebuild her life. She focused on herself, diving into hobbies she had neglected during her marriage. She joined a fitness class, rekindled her love for painting, and began to explore her own passions. Slowly but surely, Leah found herself again. The guilt of her past still lingered, but she began to accept her mistakes as part of her journey. She learned to find joy in the little things, spending time with friends, exploring new places, and embracing the beauty of being single. Julian remained supportive, but began to notice the shift in Leah. She was no longer the woman who had run away from her feelings. She was becoming more grounded, more aware of herself. One evening, as they sat on the couch, Julian turned to her. "Leah, I care about you, but I think you need some space to figure things out," he said gently. "I want you to be happy, even if it means letting go." Leah felt a pang of sadness at his words. "I understand, Julian. I appreciate everything you've done for me. You've been my rock through this." As Julian left her apartment that night, Leah felt a sense of freedom. She was learning to embrace her own happiness, independent of anyone else's approval. Months later, Leah found herself standing in front of a canvas, paintbrush in hand. She had enrolled in an art class and was rediscovering her love for creativity. The vibrant colors swirled together as she painted, and for the first time in a long time, she felt alive. One evening, after a particularly fulfilling class, Leah met her friends for dinner. As they laughed and caught up, she felt a warmth in her heart. She was surrounded by people who cared about her, and she was learning to care for herself. Later that night, as she walked home, Leah reflected on her journey. She had made mistakes, but those mistakes had taught her valuable lessons about love, trust, and self-worth. And while she had lost Daniel, she had gained a deeper understanding of herself. As she lay in bed that night, she realized she was ready to embrace whatever the future held. Life was unpredictable, but she was no longer afraid. She had the power to shape her own destiny, and that was worth celebrating. Meanwhile, Daniel had fully embraced his new relationship with Sarah. She had brought joy back into his life, her spontaneity and warmth reigniting the spark he thought he had lost forever. They traveled together, went on adventures, and created new memories that replaced the painful ones he had associated with Leah. One evening, while sitting on the beach, Sarah turned to him, her eyes bright with excitement. "I can't believe how far we've come in such a short time," she said, her voice soft. "I feel like I'm finally healing," Daniel replied, taking her hand in his. "You've helped me see that there's more to life than the past." "Good," Sarah smiled, leaning in to kiss him. "Let's keep moving forward together." As Daniel looked into her eyes, he felt a sense of peace wash over him. He had loved Leah deeply, but now he was ready to build a future with someone who embraced him fully. One afternoon, Leah found herself at a local art gallery, showcasing her latest work. It was her first exhibition, and she felt a mixture of excitement and nerves. As she mingled with guests, she caught sight of Julian across the room. He looked proud, and their eyes met for a brief moment before he approached her. "Wow, Leah, this is amazing," he exclaimed, gesturing to her artwork. "Thank you. It means a lot to me," she replied, her heart swelling with pride. As they talked about her art, Leah felt a sense of gratitude for Julian and everything he had brought into her life. But she also recognized that she was ready to move on from that chapter. "Julian, I think I need to take some time for myself," she said, her voice steady. "I appreciate everything, but I want to focus on my art and my journey." He nodded, understanding. "I respect that, Leah. You deserve to find your own path." With that, they parted ways amicably, and Leah felt a weight lift off her shoulders. She was stepping into a new chapter, one filled with hope, creativity, and the promise of a brighter future. A few weeks later, Leah found herself at a cafe, sipping coffee while working on her sketches. As she flipped through her notebook, she felt a sense of peace wash over her. She had come so far since the chaos of her past. Just then, Daniel walked in, his eyes scanning the room until they landed on her. He approached cautiously, a mixture of emotions on his face. "Leah," he said, his voice low, "can we talk?" "Of course," she replied, her heart racing. They found a quiet table, and the tension hung heavy in the air. "I wanted to see how you're doing," Daniel said, his gaze sincere. "I'm doing well," Leah admitted, her voice steady. "I've been focusing on my art and myself." "Good," he replied, his expression softening. "I'm glad to hear that. I've been working on moving forward, too." Leah felt a rush of gratitude for Daniel's understanding. "I'm really sorry for everything, Daniel. I never meant to hurt you. I hope you can find happiness. I've found someone special," he said, a smile breaking through the heaviness. "Sarah has been incredible. I'm happy for you," Leah said, feeling a warmth spread in her chest. "You deserve to be with someone who makes you feel appreciated." Daniel nodded, his expression serious. "And you deserve that too, Leah. I hope you find what you're looking for." As they parted ways, Leah felt a sense of closure wash over her. She had faced her past, accepted her mistakes, and was finally ready to embrace her future. In the months that followed, Leah fully embraced her life as an artist. She held more exhibitions, received positive feedback, and built a community of fellow creatives who inspired her. The pain of her past transformed into motivation, propelling her forward. As she stood in her studio one afternoon, surrounded by her canvases, Leah smiled at her reflection in the window. She had learned to love herself and the journey she had taken. Leah found herself exploring new relationships, dating casually, and enjoying the thrill of meeting new people without the baggage of her past. She was determined not to rush into anything serious until she was ready. And one evening, at a local gallery opening, she met someone who sparked her interest, Alex, a fellow artist with a passion for adventure and life. They shared stories, laughter, and a connection that felt refreshing and genuine. As they exchanged numbers, Leah felt a flutter of excitement in her chest. She was ready to open herself up to new possibilities, armed with the lessons she had learned along the way. Months turned into years, and Leah continued to flourish as an artist. She explored different styles, experimented with her creativity, and found joy in every brushstroke. She had learned that life was not just about finding love, but about finding herself. Leah and Daniel remained friends, their bond transformed into mutual respect and understanding. They occasionally crossed paths at events, exchanging friendly smiles and pleasantries, grateful for the lessons they had learned from each other. Daniel thrived in his relationship with Sarah, and together they created a life filled with laughter and love. Leah couldn't help but feel happy for him, knowing they had both moved on from the pain of the past. As Leah stood in her studio one evening, surrounded by vibrant colors and the scent of paint, she realized that she had finally found her own path. Life was a beautiful journey, filled with twists and turns, and she was ready to embrace whatever came next. The story of her affair with Julian, the heartbreak with Daniel, and the lessons learned along the way became part of her art, woven into the vibrant colors and intricate patterns on her canvases. Leah was no longer the lost girl seeking validation in others. She was a woman who had found her own voice. And as she painted, she knew that life was about more than love. It was about self-discovery, resilience, and the beauty of embracing every moment. Leah had learned that happiness was not a destination, but a journey. Through her mistakes, she had discovered strength, creativity, and the power of choice. She had chosen to live authentically, to embrace her passions, and to find joy in the little things. And as she continued her artistic journey, Leah knew that the future held endless possibilities. She was ready to paint her own masterpiece, one brushstroke at a time.